Hi everyone, I'm Emilee Shannon and I'm back from my beach vacation. So today I'm going to make for you meatballs with spaghetti and some zucchini noodles also. This is my mom's meatball recipe. I'm going to use just beef today. When she makes it, she uses beef and pork and veal and mixes them all together, but I like them with just beef too. So let's get started. These are the ingredients that I'm going to use to make the meatballs and spaghetti today. For the meatballs, I have 80-20 ground beef, and I have for my seasonings crushed red pepper flakes, garlic salt, basil leaves, oregano leaves, salt and pepper. Then I have seasoned Italian breadcrumbs, and I have grated Parmesan cheese, and then I also have shredded Parmesan and Reggiano cheese. Eggs, and then an onion also. And then for the spaghetti, I'm going to use obviously the box of spaghetti and then also the zucchini there with the spiralizer. This package of ground beef that I bought was a 2-pound package, so I just took 1 pound out and set it in the refrigerator to use for something else. And with the remaining pound, I just kind of flattened it out because I want to get all these seasonings really mixed into all the meat. So first thing I'm going to add is some of the Parmesan cheese. I like to do some grated Parmesan cheese and also some shredded Parmesan cheese just for a little different texture. You can see the shredded Parmesan cheese in the meatballs too, so it kind of looks a little visually appealing. So get some shredded cheese in there. For the Italian style breadcrumbs, I just sprinkle probably about 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs over it. And the breadcrumbs are a filler in the meatball. They make the meatball softer. And since I'm using dried breadcrumbs, as the fat from the ground beef melts, the breadcrumb will kind of soak it up to keep all the flavor inside the meatball. So do the breadcrumbs, then I'm going to sprinkle a little garlic salt in there and oregano. So I'm just eyeballing these seasonings, and then once I get all the seasonings in and I mix it up, I'll make a little patty and cook the patty just to see how it tastes, if I need to adjust any of the levels of the seasoning before I roll all the meat into meatballs. Because once I do that, then if I want to add more salt or add more crushed red pepper, then I would have to mix all the meat back up and then roll it into balls again. So add some basil and a little crushed red pepper flake. The pepper flake, just do however spicy you like it. I like my meatball a little bit spicy, so add the pepper flake and then cracked black pepper. And also some plain salt. Sprinkle that. And to bind it all together, I'm going to use 1 egg. Crack that in there. And it's best to mix this meat by hand, and try not to mix it too much because the warmth from your hand will start to melt the fat in the meat also. So just kind of get it combined as quickly as possible. So I'll go ahead and start mixing this up. I got all the seasonings and the cheese and the breadcrumb and the egg mixed into the meat, and I formed a little patty like this. And I'm gonna take the patty over to the stove and fry it and then taste test it. So to fry my meatballs, I like to use bacon grease. It just gives another layer of flavor to the meatball and also to the sauce in the end. So if you don't want to use bacon grease, or if you don't have any, you can always use olive oil. You can use a mixture of bacon grease and olive oil. You can use butter and olive oil. That is really good too. That'll help make it taste a little more rich. I fried my test patty meatball and it tasted great, so now I'm gonna just roll up the rest of this meat here. So just pinch a chunk of meat and just roll it really gently into a ball. You don't push really hard, just push really soft and form it like this, and then just set it to the side. So from a pound of meat, I usually get about like 18 to 20 meatballs, and that's about the right amount. Unless you want to make them bigger, you can make them bigger. If you like smaller meatballs, you can make them smaller. There's another one. So I'll just roll up the rest of this meat, and then we'll go over to the stove and brown the meatballs on the outside. I've got all my meatballs rolled into ball shapes, And now I'm ready to start frying them in the bacon grease. So I have this large pan because after the meatballs are browned on the outside, I'm going to dump the sauce over them and let it all simmer in this big pan for a while. That way the meatballs can cook all the way through and absorb some of the flavor from the tomato sauce also. So the pan's nice and hot. It's around medium high. I'm just going to start putting the meatballs in around the pan. I'm going to leave some space in between them so they have room, so they get nice and crusty and brown on the bottom, not just stay kind of soggy. So, plus you want to have room to roll them over because you have to turn the meatballs, so it's easy if you have room, you can just roll them in the pan. Then when the first batch is done, you transfer them over to the bowl and then brown the outside of the second batch, put those in the bowl, and then I'm going to slice that onion and soften it in this bacon grease also. So the bottom side of the meatballs are starting to get brown. You see here, a little crusty and brown on the bottom, so it's time to roll them over. Just take your tongs and just roll them to a different side than they're on. We're going to try to brown up 3 sides of the meatball and then set it on the other plate and get the other ones in the pan. So I've got them all turned to the second side. If you see little bits of the meat or of the cheese sticking to the bottom of the pan, don't worry about that. That will get really nice and caramelized, and when we pour the sauce over, that'll pop up from the bottom of the pan and mix into the sauce and be really delicious. I'm finishing up browning the rest of the meatballs, the second batch, and I'll put them to the side with the other ones. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium-low, a little below medium, and I'm going to add in the onions that I sliced up. The onions, we're not trying to make them brown or put any burn spots on them, no char on the onions. We just want to soften them so the natural sugars come out to make the sauce a little bit sweet. Get those out of there. The pan's still a little bit hot, so I'll go ahead and add them and just keep stirring them for a few minutes. Next, we're going to add the meatballs back in and then add the tomato sauce to it. If you're uncomfortable with the amount of grease or oil that's left in the pan right now, you can dump some out so the sauce doesn't have as much fat in it if you like it to be a little lighter. While the onions are getting soft in the pan, I'm going to go ahead and cut the zucchini. So I have my spiralizer here. This is the Veggetti brand spiralizer. I bought it at CVS, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the zucchini on the thick side instead of the thin side because I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of spaghetti also, so I want them to be kind of similar in size. Also, when you drop the zucchini into the hot water, if it's on the thin side, sometimes they get overcooked really fast. So it's only going to cook for a few seconds anyway, so I cut it thick. So just put that in there and twist it. And when you think it's about the length of a strand of spaghetti, just break it off and put it back in and twist again. So I would say cut up about 1 zucchini per person that you're planning on feeding, and then when you mix it with the spaghetti, it's going to be plenty of food. The onions are nice and soft, so now I'm going to add the meatballs back to the pan. So put those in gently. If there's any juice in the bottom of the bowl, make sure that you get all the juice back in there. That's extra flavor. Try that out. I turned my heat back up to medium, And I'm just gonna add this jar of tomato basil sauce. This is from Aldi, like all the rest of my ingredients today. So I'm gonna add that. And when you use these jar sauces, the flavor is a little bit concentrated. So when you dump them out, all the sauce doesn't come out of the jar either. I usually just fill it up like about 1/4 of the way with water, shake it, and then dump the water in there because I'm gonna let this bubble anyways to cook the meatballs all the way through. So some of that water is gonna bubble off in steam. So just about this much water. Shake it up and dump it in. And that gets all the rest of the sauce out of the jar. See? Nice and clean. I'm gonna add in a little bit more of garlic salt, a little bit of basil, and a little bit of oregano to the sauce, just to give it a little more seasoning. You can if you want to. All right, I'm gonna stir this all up and let it bubble on a little bit above low. So you want it to be lightly boiling, but you don't want the sauce to be splattering out all over the floor and all over the counter. Then you have it on too hot and you run the risk of burning the sauce on the bottom of the pan. So let this start to boil and then leave that alone. While the meatballs and the sauce are cooking, I'm gonna boil the water, boil the pasta, and put in the sliced zucchini right at the very end and get that cooked, and then we'll be ready to put this all together. The water has come to a boil, so I'm gonna add salt to it. I salt the water on the pasta to give the pasta some seasoning because the pasta is gonna soak up the water, and if you want the pasta to have a little flavor, then you have to add salt to the water. So add your salt to the water. And then I'm just going to put the pasta in. This pasta says to cook for 8 to 10 minutes for al dente. So at 8 minutes, I'm going to come over and check it. If it's the right texture, then I'm going to add the zucchini in, but just for about 30 seconds. So I'll put this in there and set my timer for 8 minutes. The pasta is ready. I just tested it for tenderness and it's just perfect. So now I'm going to put my zucchini in, and I'm just going to turn the heat off on the pasta. And I'll put the zucchini in and leave it in for just about 30 seconds. Since it's cut so thin, it's gonna cook really quick. So if you leave it in too long, it'll just all break apart and turn into mush. So that's why we wanna cook it really quickly. So go ahead, slide that in there. Push it down in. Give it a few seconds to get hot, then I'm going to dump it into the pasta strainer in the sink and let it sit for a few minutes in there because the zucchini is going to keep giving off more water. If you plate it immediately, a big puddle is going to form on the bottom of the plate. So just kind of let it drain, and then if you need to reheat it before you put the sauce on, you can pop it in the microwave for a second, or you can just put the hot sauce over it and that will heat the pasta and the zucchini enough when you toss it together. So the sauce and the meatballs are done simmering, and I have the pasta and the zucchini out of the water. I kind of twisted it together into a little mound here, and I'm going to just spoon some of the sauce over it. Add a couple meatballs. Maybe one right on top there. And sprinkle on a little bit of the grated Parmesan cheese. And then if you want to garnish, just garnish with a little fresh basil right there. And that's it, the spaghetti with meatballs with zucchini pasta. I'm Emilee Shannon, and thank you for cooking with me today. Bye.